In this segment, we will be inoculating 3 grain masters with agar wedges from a Petri dish. Now, this segment begins after about an hour of preparation for clean work, and for a more detailed description of what I do to get ready for this, please refer to the opening sequence in the grain-to-grain transfers section. Now, of course, as with any time I transfer agar, the first step is always to heat the scalpel red hot, and mercifully I've chosen to show you this little 5-second graphic each time, rather than bore you to tears as you wait a couple of minutes while the scalpel heats red hot and then cools off a bit. Equally important with flame sterilizing our scalpel, of course, is to sanitize the surfaces of the jar with alcohol so that any contaminants that might be on the surface don't get blown into the jar by the flow hood. I like to loosen the lid so that when I get ready to make the transfer, it can happen as quickly and smoothly as possible. And I also want to sanitize my gloves with alcohol just to make sure no contaminants that have landed on them get knocked into the jar by the wind from the flow hood. Now observe my finger position as I lift the lid, and notice that I lift the section of the lid against the flow hood first. This prevents any contaminants that might be on the lid of the Petri dish from getting blown inside. Now, given ideal conditions, a Petri dish like this can easily inoculate 10 grain masters. But unfortunately, I live in a 40-year-old condo building with a leaky roof that has moldy walls and wall-to-wall carpeting, and I have found that if I inoculate only 3 grain masters with each Petri dish, they colonize much, much faster, and it gives me a head start on any contaminants that might be present. Observe how as I open the lid on the grain master, I open the section of the lid towards the flow hood first. This prevents any possible contaminants from the lid or the filter getting blown into the jar, and I make sure I don't put any part of my hands in between the flow hood and the Petri dish or the grain master jar. In addition, notice how short a duration the lid is actually open on the uncolonized grain master jar. This lessens the chances of contaminants being blown into it. Well, there you have it. You duplicate this process by however many Petri dishes and grain masters you're going to inoculate on any given session. I have learned from experience it's best not to shake a grain master after you inoculate it with an agar wedge. And the reason for this is that it seems to knock the mycelium off of the agar, but it doesn't recover into the grains. It waits until the mycelium recovers from the agar again, which seems to set you back several days. So I simply drop the agar wedge into the grains, and the mycelium continues to grow on the agar, and then it crawls right into your grains. And when I have an inch or two worth of the top part of the grains colonized, then I give the jar a good shake, and it only takes a couple of days after that for it to finish up. So it actually speeds up the process if you don't make your initial shake for about 3 days after you make your transfer. And of course, don't forget to label the jar with the date, species, and strain right away. Good luck!